All right, everybody, welcome back to the Pirates Corner podcast. We are back after a long break. I guess you were very busy with getting your new house.
Yeah.
I was busy with schoolwork and everything like that, but now we're back, and we have a special guest today, Troy Christoph, TK Troy. How's it going, Troy?
It's going pretty well. Thank you guys for having me on. It's good to talk baseball even in November here when we kind of just finished up with the World Series, and actually back here where I'm living in western Pennsylvania, closer to Pittsburgh, actually supposed to get some snow tonight, but it's nice to talk about baseball for a little bit this afternoon.
Yeah, for sure. So the topics that we're going to go through today are general manager, and pitching coach. That's kind of the front office side of things, making moves, and that leads us into the outfield situation, and we're each going to pick a free agent, and we're also going to talk about some prospects that we would like to see flourish for the Pirates this upcoming season, and maybe talk some MLB debut projections. So first we can talk about the general manager, and it seems to be that the Pirates have it down to three guys. It's Ben Cherington, who is currently an executive with the Toronto Blue Jays, Matt Arnold, who's the assistant general manager of the Brewers, and then Kenyon Graves, who's currently the interim GM. And first impressions are, I really like Cherington, and I don't want Graves because I want somebody from the outside coming in, new perspectives. How about you, Josh?
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. Take Graves' name out of the mix. He's the acting general manager, so we'll see what happens with the meetings this week. If he's asked to make any major decisions. But like you, I really like Ben Cherington. He shares a lot in common with the previous general manager, who kind of did a nice job for a number of years until he kind of was overwhelmed by the pressure to win. And he made that comment, unfinished business.
Yeah.
And it all coincided with the Chris Archer trade, which eventually led to his demise in Pittsburgh, and now he's out of a job. But Cherington looks like a good candidate. Matt Arnold may be a good candidate, but he has some loose ties to a number of teams, but most recently the Tampa Bay Rays.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of getting tired of that, like Pittsburgh Pirates, Tampa Bay Rays connection.
There's a lot of connections. I know that a lot of people were wanting Shane Bloom to come in and be the general manager, and obviously there's some bad blood with the fans, not on the field, but with the fans, with the trade, Chris Archer and everybody like that. So yeah, I'm not 100% sold on Matt Arnold. Ben Cherington, I like how he took a bad Red Sox team to the World Series from 2012 to 2013, but Troy, you did bring up some bad contracts.
Yeah, he gave a few bad contracts in his time in Boston. Guys like Pablo Sandoval and Hanley Ramirez, those were contracts he gave big money to guys who were coming off good seasons, but those guys didn't project out well for the future. They were getting older, they weren't very good defensively, and they ended up not making the huge impact in Boston that the money that they were given would suggest that they should be making.
Yeah. And then we also went over some good pieces that he got, like Mike Napoli and David Ross. Some kind of sleeper guys who worked out well for him. Yeah, Jake Peavy.
So Troy, of those three candidates, where would you say you're leaning?
I like Ben Cherington. I feel like getting that team to the World Series, that's the ultimate goal. The guy did it pretty quickly after taking over. Within 24 months of taking over that job, he was a World Series winning general manager. Granted, they had 3 losing seasons after that, but to get to that peak and get the fans to the World Series, that's going to get the fans on your side. I know Red Sox fans are kind of split on their thoughts on looking back on his tenure there, but the World Series stands out. That's a huge thing. And the guy built up the farm system there. He really didn't trade away key pieces. The guy had every opportunity to trade away young players at that time, like Betts and like Bogarts, and he hung on to those guys, and the impact they're making now for Boston. I know they had a down year in 2019, but holding on to those guys is huge. Mookie Betts is one of the best outfielders in the game. The guy's an MVP candidate, and he's filling up the statistical categories there in Boston. So to hold on to those prospects, to draft pretty well. International signings, the Red Sox did okay, but he drafted well. He built up their system, and he really didn't deplete it. He didn't leave Boston with the cupboard bare. A lot of general managers get fired or get replaced when the minor league system is depleted, and a lot of that blame gets placed on that. That wasn't the case for him, so I like that.
Yeah, and he helped bring in another guy that I know you're a big fan of. Andrew Benintendi is getting stuff done in left field for Boston.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
You know, some guy who I was following on Twitter, I since unfollowed him, I actually forget his username. He was very set on having Dave Dombrowski come in and be the Pirates' GM or president. You know, from what he's done, another Red Sox guy, it's kind of like kiss your farm system goodbye. But Cherington is probably my top pick as well. So, and another thing is, I haven't really seen any other teams pursuing Cherington as much as they've mentioned the Pirates in the news and on Twitter. So that's very good. Hopefully we can get him pretty soon because free agency will open up in a couple of days, right?
Yeah. It seems like all three of these candidates are... Cherington may have an offer from another team, but I don't recall if there was any other significant general manager job openings.
San Francisco.
Yeah, that was the other one.
Yeah, they announced theirs.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the former Cubs executive Scott Harris there. He's going to take over in San Francisco. The Pirates are now the lone team in Major League Baseball that don't have that guy leading the everyday baseball operations.
Okay.
I think just a little bit of background on Matt Arnold. The guy was really successful quickly as a professional scout for the Rays. The guy can evaluate talent. He got that promotion from just being a professional scout into the higher levels of the baseball operations there pretty quickly. In his time in Milwaukee, he did a little bit of everything. Player development, he made personnel decisions, he was negotiating contracts. So I think he's ready to be a Major League GM. And he was mentioned before the Pirates general manager opening even came about as a candidate who was kind of ready to take that next step. I'm not saying that I like him better than Cherington because I'm kind of split 50-50 between the two, but I'm not going to go out and say that he's not qualified for that job. I think he has the experience and the tenure that he could do that, and he could be a guy that can evaluate talent. He could be a guy that could build the farm system. I think the candidates are honestly very similar at this point, even throwing Kevin Grace back into the mix. I think all three guys kind of have that similar aspect about them. I think they're all good candidates. I think they would all be positive hires for the Pirates.
Yeah, it's interesting that you brought that up. I was doing some research on Matt Arnold, and I saw that he had some experience as an area scout, and that kind of appealed to me as well. And he is ready to take the next step. The only thing that gives Cherington a leg up in this situation is if Cherington has truly learned from his mistakes, like with the bad contracts in Boston, then he has some experience that would potentially get this Pirates team back quicker. I've said to you a couple of times that this Pirates team is kind of in a situation where they have enough talent where if they just picked it up and put it all together, they could be back in the postseason within a year or two. It's just a matter of having the right people in place. So that's where I would give Cherington the leg up. But Arnold is a great candidate, as you said, and I wouldn't mind seeing him get the job. But yeah, that's just my take on the whole situation.
All right, so do we want to move on to manager?
Yeah.
I think that we wrapped up general manager pretty well. All right, so manager, obviously the Pirates fired Clint Hurdle, and a couple names that we have written down here, Derek Shelton and Mark Kotze. How do you feel about Derek Shelton? Because he's my pick for manager.
Yeah, I like Derek Shelton because he did a nice job as a bench coach for the Twins this year. He helped keep things headed in a positive direction on a team that was kind of on the periphery whether or not they were going to have, like, to start this season, the Twins were in a situation where, hey, maybe they have a winning record this year, maybe they compete for a wild card berth, and then they go from start to finish, stability, win over 100 games.
Yeah.
They didn't show up in the postseason, but you have to believe that Derek Shelton played a role in that happening. Just adding to the culture in their clubhouse, adding to their the in-game decision making, the meeting of the minds in the dugout that happens between he and the manager and everybody else when things could go south, keeping everything together.
He's 49, by the way. So with Charrington is 45 and Shelton's 49. So we're looking in kind of like that range. And obviously we want people analytically minded because of the way that the game's going now. So Shelton's definitely a good candidate. How about Mark Kotze? You know, I haven't really read much about him other than he's the quality control coach of the A's.
Yeah, so he's been doing a lot of work with the players just on a variety of fronts. He's kind of been the jack of all trades in Oakland, working with players just to learn the game of baseball, develop baseball instincts, everything like that. And he was a guy who was always a guy with grit when he played the game.
Yeah.
So he's also a good candidate. Troy, your thoughts on the two candidates we had written down?
Derek Shelton's a guy that from what I've read, that the players could go to for advice. He watches the film. He knows hitting. There's no doubt about it. He knows hitting. Those guys hit a lot of home runs without the huge names under big contracts. They don't have a Bryce Harper. They don't have a Mike Trout. They don't have those huge contracts. And home runs went up around baseball, but a lot of that was the star players who swing for the fences hitting more home runs. This team doesn't really have that. They hit more home runs, and it came because of their approach. And I think that he's just a guy who's young enough to relate to the players. I feel like I said from what I've read, he's a guy that players could go to for advice. You want the manager's office door to be open in Pittsburgh. You want the young players to be able to approach the guy. Did Clint Hurdle lose the clubhouse a little bit at the end? It's possible that he did. Clint Hurdle was always a guy who managed towards the veterans. We can say that he didn't, but that's just always the reputation that he's going to have, that he managed for the veterans more than the younger players. That's just kind of how I feel about it. And I feel like it's important for the Pirates right away. You got to throw out guys like Buck Showalter. That guy's an older guy. He had some success. He had a lot of success at times, but he's not the right candidate for this job. You want a guy who's young enough to relate to the players, who isn't a retread, and maybe a guy who has a little more fire than a Buck Showalter. And I think you also, on the opposite end of the spectrum, I don't think Jason Kendall or someone like that is the guy either.
John Wayner.
You want to stay interviewing those serious candidates like you guys mentioned with Shelton and Kotze. I personally like Rod Barajas. I feel like that guy is a guy who the players can also relate to. He has managerial experience all the way up to the higher levels of the minor league system there. And in San Diego, he actually finished the year as the interim manager and was a very serious candidate for that major league position when it opened up at the end of the season. He didn't get the job, but I feel like he's another guy out there to keep in mind.
Yeah, can't go wrong with a former MLB catcher being the manager for your team. And we'll touch more on that later when we make our free agent impact predictions. So
yeah. All right, so we're going to move on to pitching coach. This I really haven't looked into as much as maybe Josh or Troy, but some names that I've heard. Well, first of all, it's I don't know how to pronounce his last name. The assistant pitching coach right now, Justin McCage or something like that, I believe.
Yeah.
He's a guy who I've seen thrown around. Some other minor league pitching coaches.
Troy knows how to say his name.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Troy, do you know how to say Joel Hanrahan?
No. I was talking about
Justin Message is how it's pronounced there.
Justin.
Oh,
He's been
okay.
around the Pirate system for a little while now. He started out as a pitching coach in Bradenton, I do believe, then worked his way through Altoona, and then up to being Ray Searich's assistant. I feel like he's He's a guy very much like Matt Arnold, kind of ready to take that next step into the higher position. I feel like his background, his experience shows that he is able to work with the pitchers. And from what I know about him, he's a no-nonsense guy. He's not afraid to get in your face and tell you what you need to hear as opposed to what you want to hear. He's not gonna take a lot of nonsense, and he's gonna be pretty straightforward. And I feel like the guy knows what he's talking about.
Yeah. I remember seeing him on the backfield at spring training. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
They had a bunch of major league guys out there, Archer, Musgrove, Crick, a bunch of the big-time pitchers on our team were out there working with him on the backfield. They had a game that day. We went over about an hour early. He was there with the video guys and basically simulated games. After the pitcher would throw, he'd come over to Justin, and they would go over what they did wrong and what they did right. So he does seem like a pretty good fit for the job. He knows the pitching staff already, and I don't think that he's that old. So hopefully he's analytically minded, and he can work with these pitchers if he is hired.
Yeah, he seemed to be leading the charge that Ray Searage and him were kind of split on. He was leading the charge of throwing your best pitch more often, which is whether that's a get-me-over slider or just throwing more sliders in general, finding creative new ways to use certain pitches as weapons rather than just standardized pound the bottom of the strike zone and try to do things that is not working in the way hitters are attacking the baseball currently. So
yeah. How do you feel about the pitching coach job, Troy?
I feel like kind of a trap that teams fall into is this philosophy where everyone kind of has to have a uniform approach, whether it be hitters, everybody has to have the same approach, and pitchers, everybody has to function the same way. I feel like it's okay for guys to have different approaches, for guys to do what they do best. I don't know so much that guys have to all pitch the same way. I think, like you said with Message, I think he's young enough and open-minded enough, analytically minded enough to let guys pitch to their strengths. Josh said, letting the guy throw his best pitch more often. Do what you do and do it well. I think that's important. Like I said, I don't think everyone has to approach their start every fifth day the exact same way. I feel like it's okay to be a little different there, to do what you do to the best of your ability and hopefully give the team 6 or 7 really quality innings, especially young pitchers. That's pretty much all you can ask.
Yeah. We brought this up before the podcast started. Joel Hanrahan, how do you feel about him?
Oh, I think he's a very qualified candidate, too. He doesn't have as much coaching experience as some of the veteran guys out there, certainly not as much as Ray Searage had. That guy had been around the major league pitching staff in Pittsburgh. He'd been around other pitching staffs for a long time. But Joel Hanrahan is a young and up-and-coming guy, and I'm excited about what he brings. I think he infuses energy into the pitching staff by being around him. I think the guy has a fiery passion. I know he cares about the game, and he's young enough where he's going to be able to go through. If the Pirates go through, I'm not going to say a full rebuild, but if they go through struggles, he's going to go through it with them. He's not a veteran guy who's close to the end of his coaching career. He's just getting started. So if the Pirates need to develop and it doesn't happen in 2020 or 2021, I feel like he's a guy that's built for the long haul. And like I said, he just brings that fiery passion that infuses energy. Just talking to him as a fan when you see him along the rail prior to a game, the guy's excited for baseball. He's young and the passion is clearly there.
Yeah, one thing I like about Hanrahan was the jump from the lower levels of the minor leagues to Altoona last year, and I don't know if he's 100% ready for a big league job right this second, but possibly if, how do you say his name again?
Message.
If Message gets worked into the pitching coach role, possibly Hanrahan comes in as the assistant pitching coach and getting some experience there, and then possibly a little bit down the road getting a big league job as a pitching coach.
Yeah, ideally you put as much pitching intelligence out there as possible. with the group of pitchers that the Pirates have. Because right now, I just wanted to put this in play for this this episode of the podcast. The Pirates pitching staff is seen around baseball and especially among Pirates fans as a poor talent group overall. And that's simply not exactly accurate.
No.
It's a pretty good pitching staff from a raw talent standpoint. It's just a matter of getting the right voices, the right amount of confidence, and the right direction. Get everything headed back in the right direction. It's all goes into that picking up the pieces. They've lost a significant amount of talent. They're without Jamison Tyone for all of next season.
Yeah.
And they lost one of the most talented pitchers on the staff last season because Felipe Vasquez
was arrested.
Did something stupid. And he's no longer a part of the organization. So, but with that said, they still have all of that array of depth that they started to build up. And it's a matter of getting a couple guys back from Tommy John surgery and then getting the right coaches in place to kind of pick up those pieces, get everything heading back in the right direction. So.
And speaking of getting things heading back in the right direction, we're going to talk about some prospects now. Two pitchers, I'll let Josh talk about them. Quinn Priester and Tanaj Thomas.
Yeah, so Quinn Priester was the Pirates' first-round pick very recently. And he's now elevated to the number 6 overall prospect in the system, according to MLB Pipeline. He was drafted this year with the 18th overall pick. So what we're looking at with him is this guy, he is phenomenal for a 19-year-old. He's got a somewhat large frame. He's 6'3", 195. At least that's what he's listed at. And this guy has a phenomenal sinker that sits in the mid-90s already. Everything across the board grades out as at least average or above average. His curveball is his second best pitch behind his fastball, and basically he's able to use that as a weapon. So right now he's a 3-pitch guy, and the changeup being the third best pitch currently ranks as average. He's able to get hitters out from both sides of the plate, righty or lefty. He's using the sinker, sneaking it front door over the corner against left-handed batters already at age 19. That's something that we saw Garrett Cole perfecting for the first time in his career this season at age 29. So at age 28 and 29. So this kid is slowly becoming the crown jewel of the system. The other pitcher that I just wanted to highlight is Tanaj Thomas, who was part of the Jordan Luplow trade before last season started that brought back that stud shortstop Eric Gonzalez.
Fractured foot, by the way. Just wanted to throw that in there. He fractured his foot in winter ball. So.
Yeah. So Tanaj Thomas is a long, lanky kid. He's got that buggy whip for an arm, just throwing straight gas. He routinely hits triple digits on the gun, and he's a guy that with all of this change in the Pirates front office, they're going to look to develop him into something special with that good of a power arm as a starting pitcher. So, Troy, anything to add on either of those two guys?
Yeah, I would say on Quinn Priester, I think it was commonly agreed upon that he was the best pitcher coming out of the draft.
Yep.
The Pirates picked him 18th overall there. I feel like he's mature in body and mind. The guy has the big frame, like you said. I've seen him in person a couple times, actually. He is a big guy. He might fill out that frame a little more, but he's already a good-sized kid. He has that methodical, easy delivery where he's sitting in the mid-90s. He's going to sit in the mid-90s, low to mid-90s, but he has the easy delivery. The strikeout numbers were good. The walk numbers were low. He has strong command at a young age, and I think it said a lot that the Pirates brought him up from the Gulf Coast League to West Virginia at the end of the year. They wanted him to get that taste of affiliate ball there with their short season affiliate. I believe he only made one start, and I think he gave up a couple of runs there over just 4 innings. But just the confidence in him at age 18 as a high schooler to promote him to the short season affiliate, something that the Pirates usually don't do with the high school kids, told me a lot about him.
Yeah. For sure.
And the Pirates' confidence in him, for sure.
Yeah, they're still, even though the organization has seen plenty of change, they haven't lost their touch with the prospects. And these two kids, they can flat out play, and they're slowly going to become 1 and 2 at the top of the farm system. But speaking of second best prospect right now, I just want to throw a shout out in the direction of Brian Hayes. Look for him to become the Pirates' starting third baseman at some point in the 2020 season, and look for him to keep that job for a long time. So,
early prediction: what happens to Colin Moran?
Colin Moran.
I'm going to go with traded, and I'm going to go to the Mets, but that's just a very early prediction.
Troy, what do you got on that?
I think Colin Moran is the Pirates' opening day third baseman
now.
For sure. I think he's the best option. I think the time will come for Hayes in June or July, but I still think he's young enough, and the Pirates aren't desperate to make that call up too soon or force him up to the big league level. They're not a team that's expected to contend for the World Series in 2020, so you want to get him every bit of good development in AAA. You never want to keep a guy down there too long, but a day too late is better than a day too early, so I think they'll take that philosophy with him.
Yeah, for sure. I'm very excited to see Hayes. I know when we were down in spring training, he was putting the ball out of the yard very, very consistently. We would actually climb trees out in deep left field, and he would hit them out there the whole batting practice session. So this guy has a lot of pop, and as we know, he's a great fielder as well. He's going to turn 23 this offseason, so he's not too old, but he's right in that range where he's going to make his big league debut hopefully this year.
Yeah, he had
probably
some
this
growing
year.
Pains
Yeah,
in AAA,
yeah, for sure. But if he can work through them, he can be a great MLB third baseman for sure.
Yeah, he ended up putting together a really solid season for AAA Indianapolis last season. So he ended up with 42 extra base hits and 427 at-bats. It's right on that pace that I like to keep an eye on, right on that pace of about 1 extra base hit every 10 at-bats. And that's how you know a guy either has significant, like he's got above average power overall.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the mark that I'm looking at. And when I talk about above average power from that perspective, I'm talking about everything that goes into slugging percentage, contributions to the team that's going to push that win total just a little bit higher. So
yeah. And the last guy who we wanted to talk about prospect-wise was Jared Oliva. He had a great fall league.
Yeah.
And he's a guy who I compare to Brian Reynolds a lot. I feel like he's kind of almost the same player because he is getting up there in age a little bit, and he may make his MLB debut this year, but he looks very promising in the fall league.
Yeah, so Starling Marte is definitely on the trade block, even with all of the turnover in the front office right now. So Jared Oliva is a guy who could see MLB call-up in 2020 because he'll be starting the season at AAA. And he wasn't a high school draft pick, so he's not young. And MLB Pipeline has him ranked as the 11th best prospect. So he is actually going to turn 24 the end of this month. So he's not like super young. He's at in his age 24 season, him making his MLB debut would not be out of the question.
Yeah, it's a decent age to make your MLB debut, especially for a guy who's not like a top 100 prospect.
Yeah.
So it's a very good age that he can come up and possibly make an impact for the Pirates this season. Do you have any thoughts on Jared? TK?
Yeah, I like the guy. I like what I saw from him watching him play in Altoona. I'm not so sure about his power yet. That's a hard thing to tell about in Double-A. He plays the game hard. He has a good attitude. He runs the bases well. He tracks down balls in the outfield. And I think just overall optimistic about him. I think the ceiling might be a little bit limited, but we're going to find out more in 2020. He could be a guy, like you said, if the Pirates move Marte, he could be that guy next in line for an opportunity to get some at-bats. Kind of like the same deal with Reynolds. He could come up and hopefully surprise a lot of people right away. I don't mind the comparison between the two. I can see why you might make that comparison. I don't think he's going to come up and win Rookie of the Year or have the same impact as Reynolds, but I can see how they play the game the same way.
Yeah. The reason why I like him is because he's a great fit in either left field or center field for PNC Park.
He's quick, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's currently playing center field every day whenever he takes the field. But with him and Brian Reynolds on the same field, it's just going like if it was Clint Hurdle as the manager, it would be Brian Reynolds because he's the veteran, so he gets priority. But we'll see where that goes, and either way, the Pirates, if they were to trade Starling Marte, then Brian Reynolds immediately would shift to center field with some combination of outfielders flanking him. You could see something like Gregory Polanco in left and Jose Osuna in right. You could see Will Craig factor into the mix in right field. You could see Kevin Kramer end up
in the outfield a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, there's a guy that you brought up, Cole Calhoun. Well, Kevin Kramer kind of profiles as a very similar type of player. Calhoun hit 33 home runs recently, but he was almost out of baseball at one point within the past couple of seasons because he wasn't hitting much. So that's kind of where Kevin Kramer's at in his career, but the profile and skill set kind of fits what Cole Calhoun brings to the table, and he's athletic enough to cover left field. So.
Yeah, and quick side note on Jared Oliva, last year was only his third year of affiliated baseball. So he's transitioned very nicely from the college level into the pros. So 24, I think that would be a fair age to make his MLB debut.
And then there's another guy who factors into the mix, Jason Martin. We saw him. He's a gritty player, but he doesn't look to have a super high ceiling. He's a quick player, so he fits in center or in left.
Will he be ready for spring training?
With his injury?
Yeah.
We'll see what happens with that.
I would say that he probably won't be ready for spring training.
Okay.
But I would say that it probably won't be too far from what I've seen, from what I've read. Into May, he'll probably be back. So I could see him having an impact coming off the Pirates bench in the summer, depending on what they do in free agency and how the obvious opening day lineup is going to look there with the Marte, Polanco, and Brian Reynolds, depending on what happens with those guys. If the Pirates opt to run Marte out there on opening day, I know he is a trade candidate. He could probably bring back a decent return, especially in the offseason. He does have value, maybe more value to a contender than he has to the Pirates, depending on what they look like on opening day. But
yeah. All right, so do you want to move on to talking a little bit more about Marte, or do you think it'll be covered in enough?
Well, I'm going to cover him a little bit more in the next segment that we have going here. And that is, we decided to add kind of a fun segment here to finish up the show. All three of us are going to pick one free agent who provides the most impact. Troy, where are you at with that? You got your guy?
yeah, I kind of feel like like this guy might be like more of a secondary impact. I don't know if he's the high-profile free agent, but I'm not satisfied with the options that the Pirates have at catcher. I like Jacob Stallings as the backup. I feel like the Pirates lack a number one, and I feel like it's worth a chance to go for Robinson Chirinos if the price is right. I know the guy's a solid defender. He's not known for his pitch framing, but he had a 790 OPS in 2019. He hit 17 home runs, and very importantly, he played in 114 games. You could count on that guy to run out there 5 games a week, out of the week, and give you a professional performance, 4 professional at-bats, works well with the pitchers, has a good relationship with them. Like I said, from what I've read, from what I've seen when I watched him play, he's not known for pitch framing, but I think the guy has upside. I think the guy's a veteran presence. I think he's a good presence in the clubhouse, around young players, around veterans. So I kind of like the guy. And I also feel like it's worth mentioning a guy like Michael Wacha. The guy kind of regressed the past couple of years. He's had some injury struggles, but he's a bounce back candidate. Working with a new pitching coach, maybe he can get back that all-star form that he had 4 years ago. He showed glimpses of it in 2018. He kind of really didn't show many glimpses of it in 2019, but yeah, he's definitely a change of scenery guy as well that could benefit the Pirates. I feel like those two names are realistic. You don't want to throw out the name Steven Strasburg and say, oh yeah, the Pirates are going to go get him and then make a run at the World Series in 2020. I just don't think that's worth our time to discuss or worth the Pirates' time to pursue.
Yeah, for sure. All right, you want me to make mine, or do you want
Yeah,
to?
go ahead.
Okay, all right, so mine is also a catcher, and that's Austin Romine. Now, Austin, he was drafted in 2007, second round by the Yankees. He's been with the Yankees his whole entire career, and he's put up some decent numbers. Let me pull it up real quick, but he's been stuck behind starting catchers right now. It's Gary Sanchez, who, as some people know, isn't that great of a fielder, but Austin Romine is a very good fielder. Now, he played in 72 games last year, so not as much as Robinson, but last year he had a 310 OBP, which is okay. Maybe a little bit more walking would be a good factor, but only playing in 72 games, he got 228 at-bats. He hit 8 home runs and 35 RBIs, but I think that Romine is mainly known for his glove. He's been a very, very good fielder, and I think that at 31, it's about time that he gets a chance for a starting role, or at least to compete with one, because right now in New York, he isn't really competing for a starting role with Gary Sanchez, mainly because of his bat. So, Romine, I think, would be a great, cheap pickup for the Pirates this offseason, and hopefully and possibly he can transition into a good starting catcher for the Pirates.
Yeah, I like both your picks, Troy and Ryan. And I gave a lot of consideration to a glue guy, a guy who basically he's the ninth man on the field. He brings the other 8 together, brings it all together, keeps everyone on the same page, defensive signal caller, everything like that. And I like where Ryan was going with that, trying to get that Cervelli effect, another New York Yankees
Cervelli
catcher.
worked out for us for a few years, so hopefully Romine can do the same thing.
Or Russell Martin before him. But
yeah,
the guy that I actually picked for this, after giving it some consideration, he's not really a glue guy, but he would fill a significant role in the lineup and defensively in the outfield, provided, and I believe that the Pirates are going to trade Starling Marte, because I believe somebody's going to give them an offer that they can't refuse. So my pick is Nicholas Castellanos, and the reasoning behind that, he's not necessarily a glue guy, but he is a guy who fills out the lineup. So with Starling Marte gone, Starling Marte was the second leading home run hitter on the Pirates last season. Castellanos, all of a sudden, you can put him in the middle of the lineup with Josh Bell, and he's going to be a threat to hit 30 home runs. while Josh Bell looks to be rounding into a guy who's going to be a threat to hit between 30 and 40 home runs, maybe 40 in one of his best seasons. He very well could have hit 40 this past season if he hadn't missed some time. He ended up with 37 home runs. So what you're looking at with that is Nicholas Castellanos has kind of developed a reputation as being a bad defender throughout his MLB career, but he's a good athlete. So I kind of see it being similar to Corey Dickerson, where you could stick him in left field and he could fill that role, be the left fielder, allow Polanco to stay more comfortable in right field because he has the athleticism to cover that ground. So that's where I see Castellanos being a fit on multiple fronts.
Yeah, for sure. I think that Castellanos would be a good fit for the Pirates and Michael Wacha and Romine and also Chirinos. Hopefully we get maybe 2 out of the 4 of those guys or somewhere in that range. So we don't have any more topics on our list. Anything else you want to go over, or are we good?
Yes. So ideally, like, there's one kind of headliner under the radar free agent where, say, Ben Cherington's the general manager and the headliner is a guy like Cherington doesn't like to sign guys that have received qualifying offers. Well, Castellanos may be the best free agent on the market that hasn't received a qualifying offer. So that's what you're looking at as him being a fit. And then you go take a look at catcher, whether it's Travis d'Arnaud, whether it's Austin Romine, whether it's Robinson Chirinos, somebody like that who has a chance to make an impact. And two free agents I would consider adding to the pitching staff. And other than Wacha being under the radar, I would say Chad Bettis is another name to look out for.
Okay.
More on the back end, but veteran stability. Troy, what are your final thoughts on this?
I know the Pirates get Edgar Santana back in the bullpen, but I know a lot of teams that make deep playoff runs are teams that take chances on those guys in the bullpen that might have career years. I know the Pirates tried this with Daniel Hudson a couple years ago. It didn't work out well, but sometimes those are the kind of guys, if you take a chance on a couple of those arms in the bullpen, couple them with the young arms that you know can cover back-end innings, like Cullen, who's still fairly young, Santana when he comes back, obviously Kyle Crick. I feel like taking a chance on a couple of those veteran bullpen arms and hoping, okay, maybe this guy can have a career season for us without giving the guy a huge contract, like going a little bit off the radar. You really have to do your due diligence in your scouting department to hit it right on those kind of guys, but to get veteran bullpen arms having a career year, that can make a ton of difference for a team. I think that can take a team to the next level when they're ready to go to the next level. And in the Pirates' case, I feel like it can just give them a lot of stability. A new manager coming in, okay, I can go to this veteran guy in the 6th inning. If Steven Brault is on the mound that night, he only gets through 5 innings or 4
or Chad Cool.
Right. Then you have veterans and you have stability. You know you can go to them, get professional innings, get a guy who's going to come to work every night. And the Pirates really, they have to cut out the nonsense in the clubhouse. I know that's kind of off the radar from what we've talked about today, but they need to get back that team and that united aspect. I mean, I'm not saying guys have to be best friends off the field, but you can't have fights in the clubhouse. I don't know how much of that was brought on by Felipe Vasquez, who obviously proved to us that he had plenty of issues off the field, but the Pirates got to cut that out. That can't be the kind of stuff that shows up in the news.
Yeah, that is right on, Troy.
Yeah, so one thing I have on that is something that I noticed that stopped. And I don't know if it was Hurdle. I don't know if it was him being injured. But do you remember on Instagram, after every win, Polanco would go on and post videos of them dancing after the win, having a good time? That just cut out. That stopped completely. I think he may have posted a couple early on that season, but it stopped completely. At one point, actually, Polanco deleted his whole Instagram account, which might not be a big deal, but I don't know if he was being told to do so by Hurdle, like, hey, stop posting these videos. But it kind of gave us an inside look at the clubhouse of the bonding, camaraderie that they all had. It was just an interesting little thing that I thought of, but I'm not sure. But for sure, the Pirates need to bring back that team aspect of the whole game.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
no doubt.
Yeah. Well, that's
thanks
all
for
we
listening,
have.
guys.
Yeah. TK, thank you for coming on with us.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. Would be willing to come back again in the future. Maybe talk a little more as we get closer to the season or during spring training, something like that.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll see you next time.